continually provide for me. There just isn't anything that you can't do. Lord, I've seen you work before, so I'll trust you all the more, because you are the sovereign God. Sovereign God, and you're bigger than all. Bigger than all my problems. And every situation. There is nothing for the sovereign God. A wave of your hand can command the seas to hold their peace. If you can handle the seas, then I know that you will deal with all my needs. So I will put every situation into your capable hands. I don't have to know the plan, because you are the sovereign God. Sovereign God, and you're bigger than all my problems. And every situation. There is nothing too hard for the sovereign God. He is able to do exceedingly.
Hey family, we've got about 2 minutes left and we're going to start our business meeting. Would you go ahead and share this link and invite someone to join you? And since we can't actually be here physically in the building, would you go ahead and right now, whatever platform you're on, YouTube, the church website, Facebook, Twitter, would you just go ahead and type in your member number. Just type in your member number. It's going to be your way of signing in to say, hey, I'm at business meeting. And we'll be back in about a minute and a half to get started. Go ahead and share this. Starting 1 minute. Would you share this? Whatever platform you're on. And if you're just getting into the room, would you go ahead and type in your member number so we know you are here. Welcome to our biannual business meeting. We're going to start in about a minute. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to business meeting. I want to officially, today is Saturday, August 29th, 2020, 9 o'clock a.m. I want to officially call to order the biannual business meeting of Word Tabernacle Church Incorporated, a North Carolina nonprofit faith entity. Thank you for being here. If you haven't already done so, your way of signing in will just be to type in your member number. So if you do that, that'd be great. So welcome to the business meeting. I want to talk a little bit today as we get started on why we have a business meeting. And our bylaws call for a biannual business meeting, and everything we do at Word Tabernacle is scriptural in nature, right? We're led out by the Word of God. 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse number 20 from the New King James Version says, avoiding this, that anyone should blame us in this lavish gift which is administered by us, providing honorable things not only in the sight of the Lord, but also in the sight of men. That same verse in the NIV says we want to avoid any criticism of the way we administer this liberal gift, meaning the finances that come in to support the ministry. For we are taking pains to do what is right, not only in the eyes of the Lord, but also in the eyes of man. And so biannually, it used to be a time where it was quarterly. Biannually, we gather together as a church family to give an accountability. And this is always where I say thank you to the members. I want to say thank you again. I have the wonderful privilege of pastoring in a context that very, very few pastors are able to pastor in. And so you give me a lot of liberty. You allow me to make day-to-day business decisions and operational decisions. And in turn, there has to be an element of accountability that we're saying back to you, the members, who are the stakeholders, hey, this is what we have done with the finances that you've given us, and this is how we have executed the ministry. And so I want to remind you of what your rights are as a member. You know, first of all, and this is not just for Word Tabernacle, quite frankly, should be the case for any church. First of all, you have a right to know how the funds of the church are being spent. And today, you're going to hear exactly how the money of the church is being spent. Secondly, you have the right to know that the programs you support are actually accomplishing the things we said they would accomplish. So you give financially, and we have women's programming, men's programming, youth programming, children's programming, outreach program. Are those programs doing what we said they should be doing? You also have the right to know that our church is complying with federal, state, and municipal laws. Whether we like it or not, we still operate in a context of laws. We have to abide by those laws. You need to be very clear as a member that we're doing that. You also have the right to restrict or designate your gift to a particular project within the church's mission objective. And what that simply means is, you know, sometimes you give and you'll say this is going to go to Project Thrive. That's your way of designating your gift. You also have a right to a timely and courteous response to any questions that you raise about finances or the programs of the church. You know, there are a lot of churches that, man, you get put out if you ask a question about money. That's not the culture of Word Tabernacle. You know, we invite your questions. We're going to give you a timely and a courteous response to those questions. And then there are a few more rights. Y'all may not say amen to these. Y'all probably said amen to the other ones while I was talking. But you also have the right to give cheerfully. And that means you should give without being pressured by us. And we really believe that when we show forth what God is calling us to do, that people don't have to be coerced or pressured into giving. That they can give, as the New Testament teaches us, we can give hilariously. You also have the right to obtain a copy of the church's most recent audited financial statements. You're going to hear about our most recent audited financial statement today. And you have a right to know that there's a responsible governing body that's giving oversight to the church. We have a board of directors. And then finally, to know that all appeals for funds are truthful and accurate. What does that mean? It means that if we say we're lifting money, raising money for Project Thrive because we want to build out the sanctuary, we want you to know that that's an honest, truthful appeal. How many times have we seen churches, remember those churches, y'all, with the thermometer in the corner, right? And they start raising money, and like the thermometer been in the corner for like 11 years, right? It's been like 3 generations, and you see the thermometer going up, and you're like, when are we going to build something? We keep saying we're going to build it. At Word Tabernacle, we want you to know that when we make an appeal for money, we're actually going to spend it the way that we're making the appeal. So that's why we have a church business meeting. We always begin our time with morning manna. This is not your typical business meeting, and so we want to spend time in the Word. And so let me pray, and let me just read a passage of Scripture, and let's talk for a minute and have our Bible study. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for everyone that's going to present. Thank you for those that are watching online, even though they can't be in the building. And so would you bless our time? Would you give us wisdom and insight? And would you open up your word to us that we would leave this business meeting better than how we logged in? And we thank you for doing this in Jesus' name. Amen. What has been so heavy in my spirit is I've been studying all over again Genesis 1, just God operating in creation. Genesis chapter 1, verse 2 says, now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. Now watch this. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. I want you to speak this over your life. I want you to say this to yourself. I want you to type this in. I want you to repeat after me. This is a season of fruit bearing and multiplication. I need you to get that in the spirit. This is put your hands on yourself. This is my season of fruit bearing and multiplication. And let me tell you something. We don't oftentimes understand how God does his greatest acts of multiplication at moments that start in a place of darkness. A place that's void, a place that is not moving. And so I want to encourage you. I want to speak something that we don't oftentimes think about. I want this morning manna to be the creative work of the Holy Spirit. And I want to encourage us that the Holy Spirit is still creating something amazing. As a matter of fact, say that about your family. The Holy Spirit is still creating in my family. I want you to get that. And so let me give you 3 quick nuggets. And this is only meant to be a morning manna, so I'm going to be 3 minutes and done. First of all, think about the person of creation. Now, that's very important. The person of creation. We are not here because of an it. Amen. We are here because of God. Yes, in the beginning, God creates. And so let me say something to you about this. Think about it like this. Let me tell you how awesome God is. God literally steps from behind nowhere because there's nowhere to step from behind. Stands on nothing because there's nowhere for him to stand. Reaches for nothing. Grabs nothing because there's nothing for him to grab. Literally takes the hammer of his own will and hits and literally hits by his own power. And sparks fly. And then his fingertips grab the sparks. And he throws the sparks into the atmosphere. And all of this happens with nothing but God. Let me tell you what I'm trying to get you to see. God is a God of creation and not chance. This is what I want to speak over the life of Word Tabernacle Church. I am not leaving my future to chance. I am not leaving my future. Say that. I'm not leaving my future to chance. I'm not leaving my family to chance. I'm not leaving my money to chance. I am trusting it with a God who's a God of creation. Chance is a bad, how can I say this? You got people that are vying for your future, and chance is a bad candidate. Chance is impersonal. Chance doesn't give you no purpose. Chance doesn't give you no fulfillment. Understand the person of creation. The second thing is understand the process of creation. And I want you to notice this. I don't have time to unpack this, but I'm just leaving this nugget for you. The first 3 days of creation, God forms. The second 3 days of creation, he fills. So before God fills the earth, fills the sky, he has to form the sky. Before he can fill the earth, he has to form the earth. This is where God has us as a church. Don't think for a moment that COVID is beating us. We are in a season of forming so God can fill. And I want to speak that over you. God always forms before he fills. And so why are we building out a 2,000 seat sanctuary when there's a capacity of 10 folk right now? Because God always forms before he fills. Why are we building a playground for kids? Because God forms before he fills. This is the creative work of the Holy Spirit. And then finally, understand the purpose of creation. The purpose of creation, number 1, is the exaltation of God. Above all things, we want God to be glorified. We want God to be exalted. And then finally, the second purpose of creation is the enjoyment of man. Y'all, God wants you in all things to prosper and be of good health, even as your soul prospers. So I want you to go back to what I just communicated to you, that this is a season of fruit bearing and multiplication. Would you go ahead and type that in while you type your member number in? And as we get ready to bring Angela up to give her financial analysis, would you type that in real quick? This is my season of fruit bearing and multiplication. And then put your member number in. I want to bring to the stage Angela Gaillard. She's our Chief Financial Officer, and she's going to give you a financial overview. Y'all got to let me know.
So much for taking time out to participate in our business meeting today. So my responsibility is to do the review for the first half of the year, and there are 4 things I'd like to try to cover in a very short amount of time. It's a lot of material. I want to review our financial process flows very briefly. We've talked about them before, but just as a reminder. Also, I want to give you the results of our 2019 financial audit. We're going to take a look at our income statement for January to June of this year, and then we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the financials for the first half of the year with income, expenses, and overall financial position. So, for our financial process flows, we've talked about this historically, and that's for our income, expenses, all of our financial transactions. We have very clear process flows with specific groups of people assigned to manage those flows and processes. And we've talked about the separation of duties that we see there. In addition, we do a monthly reconciliation to the penny between our accounting system and our bank statement. And we have folks that are not on staff that help us with that process every month. And then also budget variance. So every executive team member reviews their financials every month to look at the comparison of the actuals to budget, to understand what those differences are, and put corrective actions in place so that we don't have that issue going forward. So what I want you to be clear about those processes is that we have separation of duties, meaning that those involved in the income are not involved on the expense side, and we don't have any single individual responsible for one process flow. In addition, we have written policies and procedures for every one of those process flows that's documented and clear. And then there's required documentation for every single financial transaction at Word Tabernacle Church. So any expense that you see, any money that has come out of our account, there is some paper documentation somewhere that justifies the purpose of that expense. And then, in addition, we have exec team review and approval for every transaction that occurs in their department, in their division, in their center. And every expense that's made for Word Tabernacle Church is reviewed by at least 3 people. The other important thing that's really important to understand is that all of that is subject to audit. Whether it's the actual transaction, whether it's the documentation, the policies or procedure, it can be reviewed by our auditor. And so let's talk a little bit about audit. So every year we do an external audit that's conducted by an unaffiliated CPA firm. What I mean by unaffiliated is they have no association whatsoever with the Word Tabernacle Church. They're not members, they don't visit, there's no association, so you don't have to worry about whether or not they're doing a favor for the organization. They are looking at all of those financial transactions we talked about, whether it's income or expenses, and reconciling them between our accounting system and the actual bank statement, as well as making sure there's consistency with the policies that we have in place. So as an example, if our policy says that we have to have 4 people in the count room counting the money, this is when we could come in on a Sunday, right? And after church on Sunday, they'd count the money. They're checking to make sure that that count sheet actually has 4 signatures on it. If not, that would be a finding for us as an organization. Salaries, they do a review of our salaries. So they're looking to see the salary that's documented in the system, that that person actually receives that salary on a monthly basis, that matches the money that comes out of the bank, that matches the W-2 that they get at the end of the year, and it matches the quarterly 941 form that we have to send to the IRS every quarter. So they're reconciling all that information to make sure everything is in alignment. So when you do an audit, they issue what's called an audit opinion. With that opinion, there's either a modified opinion or unmodified opinion. A modified opinion has 3 categories. The first is a qualified opinion, which says that, yes, there were some minor tweaks, minor errors that we were able to correct, and we feel that we have good financial understanding of the organization once we make those minor tweaks. An adverse opinion says, cannot justify the financials because there are numerous errors, there are large errors, they're pervasive throughout the organization and throughout the financials. So these do not fairly represent the financial position of the organization. And then the final one is a disclaimer of opinion, which says, we couldn't get enough information from management, from the staff, from the organization. We couldn't get enough supporting data, documentation to be able to form an opinion about the financials of the organization. Those would all be modified opinions. Unmodified opinion says the financial information that we've received, we have sufficient evidence to have confidence that the financial statements do fairly represent the financial condition of the organization. Now you'll notice that that's the only one that's green on your screen, right, in terms of those different options. It doesn't mean that your financials are good, they just mean that they do represent the condition of your organization. So for us, for 2019, our last fiscal year, this is the report from our auditor. You'll see the top line there basically says we got sufficient evidence to be able to form an opinion, and then the next section shares what their opinion is. And for us, for 2019, we had an opinion that said they do believe the results fairly represent the financial position of Word Tabernacle Church. In other words, family, we received an unmodified opinion, which is the highest possible audit opinion, or in other words, a clean audit. And I just want to say thank you and congratulations. I want to thank Anita Bynum, Cassandra Green, Lisa Hayes for all of your work in helping us reconcile every month. I want to thank the staff for your work in making sure that we have required documentation on file. I want to thank the exec team for your approval and review of the financials. Thank you to the finance team for your dedication, even in this season of COVID, of coming in and making sure that we have accurate deposits. It is a team effort, and you all, again, have worked together to make sure that we had an unmodified opinion another year in a row for Word Tabernacle Church. Thank you so much. And so now let's talk about expenses and income for the first half of the year. So the financial statement you have on the screen, I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see that. You'll notice that I've circled a few numbers, so I want to talk through some of those now. For our income year to date, we're at $1.7 million, which is 107% of budget. That's really good. For contributions, which is where we really like to focus when we're talking about income, because that's the area where you and I can have an impact as members, right? And so contributions were at $1.56 million, which is 122% of budget, which is phenomenal. Now, I do want to make a note that the budget for 2020, we did lower it compared to 2019 because we wanted to try to respond a little bit to what we saw coming with COVID. So compared to 2019's budget, we're at 115% of budget, but it's still higher than what we would have expected. So you all have done a phenomenal job, and I just want to thank all of you for your continued support of the ministry. Tithes, we recall members, we ask our members to give to Tithe, Pastoral Support, and the Thrive Fund. Tithe was at 129% of budget. Pastoral Support was at 100% of budget. I don't know that I've ever seen that before. And so on behalf of Pastor Gaillard, Pastor Kyle, and Pastor Stephanie, thank you so much for how you support them as they sow into our lives as members and the lives of our family as well. And then the Thrive Fund. This was only at 62.5% of budget. And some of that may be because people did not realize they could continue to give to the Thrive Fund given this season of COVID. But I want to assure you that we are continuing to invest in the property, in the vision, and we'll talk about that briefly in just a moment. Regarding expenses, we were at $1.13 million year to date, which was 72% of budget. The centers, we are now organized in centers instead of divisions, and the centers that had the highest expenses were closely aligned to those same divisions that we saw before, those that have those higher fixed costs. But nothing was over budget for the year. And then net income, we were at $579,000 of net income year to date, compared to a budget of only $18,000. And that was driven primarily by the reduction that we saw in expenses, which were nearly $450,000 less than expected for the budget. And then, of course, our income was a little higher as well, $113,000 over. So let's dig into each of those areas a little more, and we'll start with income. You all are used to seeing this quarterly contributions trend chart, and you'll see that blue line is the percent of budget, which we've talked about already a little bit. But if you look at that burgundy bar, you'll see particularly that last one on the end for Q2 of 2020 is much higher than before. So even in this season of COVID, you all have continued to sow into the kingdom and really appreciate that. You'll see it a little more clearly on this next slide as we look at per capita giving. You'll see a sharp increase in that red line. That is the actual per capita, which is the average, the total dollars given divided by the total number of people who gave. Part of the reason that number goes so far up is because we actually had a significant decrease in the number of people who gave during the quarter. So from Q1 to Q2 of 2020, we saw a 17% reduction in the number of givers. From the end of last year to the end of June, we saw a 24% reduction in the number of givers. This may be because people were not able to be physically in the building and they're used to dropping an envelope or dropping money in the bucket during services. I want to assure you, you can still continue to give. Church Life app, Cash app, text giving, online, all of those are great options. If you are not comfortable giving electronically, you can mail in your contribution. We have several members who have done that. And then there is a brand new drop box the campus division has installed on the side of our building. That's if you get an opportunity to drive by and see all the wonderful improvements I'll talk about in just a moment, there's a brand new drop box you can drop your envelope in there. So there is opportunity for you to continue to give. If you are one of those 353 members that gave in Q1 but didn't in Q2, I want to encourage you to continue to give. We see, as before, you all are familiar with this chart, 64% of our members were givers they were 64% of the total givers who gave during the year, and they gave 91% of the contributions. We didn't share the chart this time for the sake of time. However, we do see an increasing trend with age, right? So the older we get, the more likely we are to participate and to give more significantly. Let's talk a little bit about expenses. Expenses, you'll see this quarterly trend chart, and I always struggle with this chart a little bit just because it's very clear you have this linear trend, right, in the expenses. That's largely in part because of the year-end accruals that we are required to put on our books. And so for those of you who may not have participated in a business meeting before, I'll take a moment just to explain what that is. So at the end of the year, December 31st, we put an accrual on our books to account for any expenses that we incurred during the year, but we have not yet paid in the year. A great example might be salaries. So as an organization, we get paid for the current month the next month. And so what we worked in December, we don't get paid for until January. But we know as an organization that we owe those funds as of December 31st because people worked that whole month. We have to put an accrual on the books to account for that. But because we know it's going to actually get paid the next month, you don't want to have those expenses on your books twice. And so then you do a reversal January 1st to reverse out that expense so you don't have double counting in your books. Well, what that does is that drives that December number much higher and the January number much lower. And so that's why you're always going to see that automatic trend. You will see the blue line there indicates where we are in terms of percent of budget. And again, we are doing really well and we are lower than budget. We are, the actual dollars spent for the first half of this year are a little higher than the actual dollars spent the first half of last year, but we are still well below budget, which enables us to continue to invest, which I'll talk about in just a moment. We also look at our expenses in terms of functional expenses. If you were able to see that income and expense statement, you would see our expenses broken down by center, it used to be division. This gives us breakdown by functional expense. We've been doing this for a while in our business meetings. If you all, those of you who have been attending for a while, you go back and look at some of your old reports. However, there was a change 2 years ago to require this type of reporting of all nonprofit organizations. And so we were already in alignment with that from some practices we had already put in place. Most small businesses are going to see 50% of their expenses spent on what we call people costs, anything associated with having people on staff. So that's their salaries, it's benefits, it's the payroll taxes that we incur as an organization for having staff. All of those expenses roll up into employment or people costs. We are right in alignment with that at 49%. And then you'll see the breakdown of other areas, office and occupancy, that's all of the facilities, those campus expenses that we used to see really high, depreciation, some of those other things that you'll see kind of break down the functional expense. In addition to expenses, we know that we have had significant investment in capital. And so for the first half of this year, this is the breakdown of those capital expenditures. We're going to talk a little bit later. We had $178,000 worth of capital expenditure in the first half of the year. Most of that went into the building. Again, if you are able to drive by and see, you'll see a lot of work that's been done on the exterior of the building, but also inside the building. So the slide that you saw at the beginning of the presentation, as well as the background that you see behind me, is representation of the brand new boardroom that we've put in place. And so those expenditures are associated with the building. In addition, Tarboro campus. You all may recall we had a plan to launch Tarboro campus for Easter of this year. Well, when COVID hit in March and we had to shut down, we were not able to complete that launch. But we had already made capital investment to prepare that space for you. And so those expenses are included here as well. Financial position. This is looking at comparison of net income and cash flow. We've talked a little bit about this before, but I want to make sure for those who may be new and this is your first time attending a business meeting that we're clear about what those differences are. Net income, again, that's the $579,000 number we talked about before. That comes from our accounting system, okay? That's our income minus expenses gives us our net income. Cash flow is the difference between our deposits versus withdrawals out of our bank account, which leaves us with the net cash flow that we had for that period. That number was $607,000 for the same time frame. Now, that's only a $28,000 difference. However, the difference between income and deposits was much more significant, $373,000, versus expenses and withdrawals, which was $345,000. So let's make sure we understand what those differences are. Net income and cash flow. For income and deposits, a few things were really significant. One was a PPP loan, which I'll talk about on the next slide because I want to make sure you understand what that is. That was nearly $191,000. Because it was a loan, it was not income to us. It did get deposited into our account, so it was a deposit and impacts our cash flow statement, but it does not show up as income for our income and expense statement. Similarly, our construction loan, we had a construction loan of $150,000 during that period, impacts our balance sheet and our cash flow, but not our income and expense statement. A couple that I'll point out on the expense versus withdrawal side. Mortgage principal payments. So when you and I make a payment on our home mortgage, right, we have a portion of that that's principal and a portion that is interest. The interest portion of that is straight expense. That's just money that we pay out, right? It's the same for us as a church. So that interest expense shows up as an expense for our income and expense statement. It also shows up as a withdrawal, right, for cash flow. So there's no difference there. What's different between cash flow and expense is the principal portion. The principal portion is not an expense on our income and expense statement. What it does is reduce the mortgage on our balance sheet. And so it makes that what we owe on the mortgage lower. It did, however, still go out of our bank account, so it is an expenditure or a withdrawal from a cash flow perspective, okay? Similarly, if those investments that we talked about for capital investments, capital expenditures, that $178,000, that money left our account, right, because we had to spend it to make the investment, but it still is not on the expense statement. It shows up on our balance sheet as an increase in the assets on our balance sheet. And so those are some of the differences that you see there. Overall, let me talk specifically about this Paycheck Protection Program before we look at our balance sheet. So you and I received a stimulus check, right, from the government, April, May timeframe. The government did a similar stimulus program for small businesses with 500 or fewer employees in April of this year. It was called the Paycheck Protection Program, and the intent was to keep people employed for a minimum of 8 weeks guaranteed. You could apply for 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. We did an application, we were approved, and we did receive that loan. The special thing about the PPP program is that it can be converted to a grant. Up to 100% of it may be converted to a grant if you qualify and you meet certain qualifications. We are going to look at that process in the next couple of weeks and hope to get that converted to a grant, so that will move from being a loan on a balance sheet to actual income on our income and expense statement. Okay. Just want to make you aware of that for our next business meeting. Our balance sheet, we have $1.25 million in the bank as of the end of June. We have multiple assets, over $9 million worth, but they have been depreciated by $1.3 million. Overall assets as of June 30th, $9.46 million. We have, yes, that's great to celebrate. We have liabilities of just under $4 million. That leaves us net equity of $5.6 million net equity. So we are doing really, really well. We reviewed all of these items. I am out of time. Just a reminder of the ways to give that you see there, and the movement that we're going to be making to apply for that grant full time. I just want to encourage you that our debt service coverage ratio continues to be in really great position. This is probably the best season that we've had. We're at 5.05 versus the 1.25 requirement by our lender, and our assets have increased over $500,000 from the end of December of 2019. So it's been a great first half of 2020. Thank you for your continued support of the ministry and the vision here at Word Tabernacle Church. We're now going to hear from our associate pastor, Kyle Darrell Johnson.
Hey y'all, so I am so excited to gather with you and to get you some information about what's going on with the center, the C3 Success. And so we have a few things we're going to talk about, but first I would like to talk to you about the Scholarship Council and the ministry that's been going on with the Scholarship Council. One, as Angela said, thank you so much for all of your faithful giving. It is because of your faithful giving that we can be effective and continue to do ministry like scholarships. And so this year, our Scholarship Council completed the process, and we were able to award 16 scholarships for the 2020-2021 school year. That's totaling $31,000 given to Wordites who are furthering their education. That includes 2 community college students, 4 students who are graduating from high school and going straight into their 4-year institutions, and 10 students who have already either been in the 4-year institutions that we've been supporting throughout their years at that school. And so thank you so very much for all of your giving. And this Scholarship Council began about 8 years ago. And since then, since its inception, since Pastor Gary says, hey, we want to support education and we want to make sure that people have the best access and support for that, we have been able to give $155,000 in academic support, financial support for academics. That is a huge deal. So Word Tabernacle Church is 15 years old, and for 8 years, we have been giving financial support for those who are continuing their education beyond high school. That scholarship will also start to increase and to include those who are trying to figure out some different trades and certifications as well. That is a part of the vision. So as you continue to give, we're able to continue to give to others. So I want to review some of our next generation ministries. And so with C3, Center for C3 Success, that includes birth through 29 years old. And so we're going to just kind of go through that process to talk about some of the things that we have been doing, even in the midst of COVID, and the things that we will be doing in the future. And so since COVID started, we believe that the mission and the vision still stay the same, even though we have to be innovative in how we accomplish those things. And so the children's ministry has been offering Mushy Mondays on Monday, where they get together with the infant and toddler groups, Teaching Tuesdays every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. If you can log into our Facebook page, which is Word Tabernacle Children's Ministry. You can log in there and you can get plugged in right into your home. And so there are children's investors who are actually investing in directly teaching students. They're about 15-minute long sessions, and they stay on there. And so if you aren't able to be there right at 3 o'clock on Tuesdays, you can still get it later on that day. We have What's Going On Wednesdays, where there's hangouts for preschoolers and through second graders via Zoom at 3 o'clock. And then we also have Thinking About You Thursdays. And that's, again, another virtual hangout, and that's for 3rd through 5th grade. We want to make sure that every population is taken care of. We want to engage with families, and so we can pull up the tablets, you can pull it up on your smart TVs, and as a family, gather around and engage with stuff. And I know that so many students are going through lots of stuff and learning about how to use Zoom and all those things with their school systems. And so we don't want to have to give you another type of technology. We've been working through it throughout the summer, and those will continue. In addition to that, this summer, our children's ministry was able to make some great partnerships with the Down East Partnership for Children and also partner with North Carolina Feeding Program. We are firm believers that the church is in the community because we're part of the community. And so we don't want to reinvent any wheels. We want to support what others are doing. And by all means, we want to make sure that we are helping them support us in what we're doing. And so we were able to get some programs that gave $1,000 of materials just for the summer camp, as well as making sure our students were fed and anyone who showed up to the church could have been fed as well. And our Summer Kids program, summer camp is now completed. This summer, we were able to help out with employment. One of the most important things that we are able to do as our Next Generation Ministries is to make sure that not only are we taking care of children, but we're also able to produce jobs for the community. And so we had 42 students who registered for our summer camp. We had 30 to 35 attending every week, 6 volunteers, all of them were middle school and high school students. When we had 8 junior counselors, all of which were college students and college recent graduates, and 6 lead teachers. And so I want you to understand, as you are giving, as we're offering these programs, just like we did with our after-school program for the past few years, as you give, not only are we investing in our family, our WordTap members, but we're also able to provide jobs for community people. And so I want you to remember that. Get plugged into the ministry activities, because you participating in summer camp meant that someone was able to pay their bills as well. So for the future, what is going to be going on? One, we will continue to have all of those electronic programs we talked about, those weekly gatherings and connections for children's ministry. But we're also going to have our virtual K-5 new members class. And so the church has been growing since all of this has been going on. That has not stopped. And so we'll have virtual classes offered for children so they can go through new members class right at home, and you can participate with them as families. We'll also have our virtual Sunday morning children's church, and so that will be coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. And we're also going to have our virtual First Friday hangouts. And so every First Friday, we're going to have a hangout in your homes for children. And so stay connected. You can find more information about the children's ministry stuff at wherestudents.thrive.com. Our next generation I want to talk about is the youth ministry. And so we focus on those same missions. One, and the most important here at the church, is discipleship. We want to make sure that the next generation understands Jesus and is able to embody all the things that he has to teach us. We do not water down anything, because the same spiritual requirement for adults exists for children. And we want our next generation to grow up fully understanding the gospel and being able to thrive in life because of that. And so every Sunday, we have the study, which is Studying Undeniable Divine Yahweh. And I know that sometimes people say it's kind of daunting and it's really difficult to dig into scripture and to learn. Well, with our youth ministry, that's exactly what our Sunday morning studies are about, teaching students how to study Yahweh, how to study scripture. And so please make sure that your child gets plugged into that. That's every Sunday at 12 noon. Again, all of this information is listed on wherestudents.thrive.com, as well as on our social media pages. And so it's easy for you to get information for that. We also have our youth Bible studies, and I'll be teaching the youth Bible study this week on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock. Youth can log into that on Instagram, and they can also log into that via our church Facebook page for our youth ministry, Word Tabernacle Church Youth Ministry. And in terms of development, so we all know that right now we're going through lots of transitions academically, and you just need some support. And so we have our tutoring program, which was established well before, and we switched over into virtual tutoring. So you can still sign up to be a tutor, and you can still sign up for tutoring support. And so you can go to wherestudentsthrive.com/tutoring if you're interested in supporting a student, or if you're a child who needs help with their tutoring process. That is not limited just for youth. That's all the way from elementary through high school. And again, I want to enforce and reinforce that please get connected to our social media pages. Students can get directly connected, but families can also as well. And so follow us on Instagram at WordTabYouth, also on Twitter and on our Facebook page. So the next thing that we have with the youth, not only are we investing in them and developing them, we also have service opportunities. We believe that children and youth are just like anyone else in the church. And so they serve, they're able to develop, and God has called for them to do the same. And so we partner with the Reach Center and Ripple Effects. And so youth were able to box up food, sort through things, help out. Kanita Family Life Center has a family farm in Kanita, and so youth were able to partner with Ripple Effects and go out, dig in the dirt, to help the process of feeding the community, because everyone has a responsibility to invest in community. So those are some of the things that have already been going on, but we also have some opportunities for them in the future. And here we have listed on September 3rd, Interfaith Food Shuttle, where they can help out with distributing food. We have serving our seniors with Ripple Effects. We have a day with Ripple Effects, and Ripple Effects is an amazing not-for-profit organization that is vested in making sure that everyone in the community, everyone from senior citizens to families to homelessness to just doing Bible studies, are being served well. And so please make sure that your child gets connected. And just because this is a slideshow and a point we're talking about youth and the next generation, that doesn't mean you as a parent can as well. So we invite all people, the family can come and serve together, and making sure that the community is being served. And so the next generation that we're going to be talking about is our 18 to 21. So this is essentially our post-high school graduates, our post-high school life, those who are 18 years old to 21 years old. They may be in the military, they may be in the workforce, or maybe in college. But if you're in that age range, there is a ministry specifically for you. And so every other Monday, we have a journey testimony released. And so we want to make sure that you understand that graduating high school, oftentimes people feel like that's the time where they kind of just go free and all that. But your faith does not stop because you're no longer going to church with your family. Your faith doesn't stop because you may not have all the answers and you have some new questions. Instead, this is the time, the 1821 is the time for you to dig deeper into your faith and to figure out how is Christ leading you in your life. And so we have journey testimony videos that are released, mixers that are going on for 18 to 21 years old that begin at 7:30 every other Monday. And every Thursday at 7:30, they have the Activate Watch Party. And we're studying through the books of Acts. So you can log into Zoom. You can get the information here on the slideshow. And all of this information is also available on our website, 1821ministries.com. And you can also find that link based on our wherestudentsthrive.com website as well. So upcoming, what's coming up with the 18 to 21-year-olds? We have the monthly table talks about the relevant topics from a biblical perspective. And so this is where you can be real, you can be relevant, you can be raw, asking questions and getting the answers about what's going on in our society and how does the Bible give answers to that. We have our social media pages that you can follow at 1821 Ministries, so you can get connected. And we also have a specific outreach to North Carolina Wesleyan College. We've been on that campus for the past few years now, and so we continue that service even though COVID is going on. We're taking safety measures, and we're still partnering with that. And so there's an organization fair that's going on August 28th. We do Bible labs that are going to be launching on September 8th, and that's every Thursday at 6 o'clock. And we have our bi-weekly monthly events that are going to help with meetups and making sure the social life is happening there. And so if you're a North Carolina Wesleyan student, or if you would like to serve and just get kind of plugged into that, all those in the community for 1821 are welcome to participate in this ministry and to get connected. So we also have another ministry that is relaunching with our young adult ministry. And so there is a website that is specific for our young adult ministry. You can go to youngadult.wordtab.net. youngadult.wordtab.net. And that's anyone who is 22 to 29 years old. You can sign up for text messaging if you text at the symbol, word tab, YA to 81010. There's also social media where you can get plugged into that. And this is, like I said, for anyone 22 to 29 years old, there's a leadership team that's already been developed, but we're also working and inviting more people to jump into that. And this is a database that's being compiled for all the people who are between those years, that age range. And so we have a small group for men, for women, and for married people within the 22 to 29-year-olds. And there will also be a Zoom gathering coming up with Pastor Gilliard on September 21st for those who are in this age range. And we invite you and welcome you to join on that. That's also, that Zoom calls will be open for those 18 to 21 years old as well. So if you're 18 to 29 in the 18-21 or the young adult ministry, Pastor Gilliard would love to meet with you specifically. There's details about that Zoom meeting on our websites. And so you can go to, again, youngadult.wordtab.net. You can get the information. You can go ahead and register for that Zoom as well. And this is a huge deal. I'm very excited about this next thing. And so our small groups at Word Tabernacle Church have been great. We've been doing church study for a few years now. And that's usually on Sunday mornings during our 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock service. People are able to gather into small groups. As COVID has been going on, we've been doing a lot of transitioning, and we were going to launch our Thrive groups before COVID happened, and we're going to be able to gather in person. But here's the deal. I want us to remember that the church does not stop existing because of the situations that's going on around us. Instead, we find innovative and new ways to accomplish those same goals. And a huge part of being a part of a local body of believers is that you have healthy and good community with each other. And so we want to make sure that you get plugged in, you get connected, and you feel supported in all of these situations, and no matter what's happening in life. And so our small group structure is created so that you can dig deeper into Scripture, so that you can be connected to the church. We may have about 2,500, 3,000 members, but that doesn't mean that you have to be another number that is lost. We encourage you to take the opportunity to get plugged in, to grow deeper as we go higher. And so small groups are ongoing small groups. That's going to be some for members only, some for for everyone. And the first group I want to talk to you about is our Church at Study group. These are groups that you can pop in, that you can say, hey, I'm here, I'm interested in learning about this. We're studying through the U curriculum, which is provided by Lifeway. You can get plugged into these small groups. We have a website specifically for small groups. It is smallgroups.wordtab.net. And all of these websites are linked from our wordtab.net, so you can find those easily by perusing through our main website. But you go to smallgroups.wordtab.net to get some information about the differences between these small groups. You can sign up for our interest forms in these small groups, and we will be contacting you to make sure that you get plugged in. So Church at Study is ongoing. There's no time commitment. You can come in whenever you can. This is for non-members as well. This is community open. Right now we're meeting via Zoom, and so once you come in, you sign in. We'll send you a Zoom link so that you can get connected to that. It gathers weekly. There's no ongoing commitment, and we're using that curriculum, and it's determined by age preference. And so you may say, hey, I want to come in, I want to just go with the older folks. I want to come in with the middle-aged folks. I want to come with the younger folks. We've been able to break down our church through generations. And so we have our children's ministry, which is birth through 5th grade, our youth ministry, which is 6th through 12th grade. Then you have 18-21, which is a post-high school transitional time. We have our young adults, which is 22 to 29. We have adults, which is 30 through 44. We have our middle adults, which is 45 through 60. We have our mature adults, which is 60 through 74. And we have our wise warriors, which is 75 and up. So we want to make sure that you're connected to the overall community, but you can also zone in and get down to your generational age so that you can have things in common with those people within your small groups. Next thing I want to talk to you about is our Thrive groups. Our Thrive groups are different from our Church at Study groups because these are groups of people that are coming together and they're set and they're going to be having a commitment to engage with each other long term. So while the Church at Study group takes no commitment, you can come in each week. You may be able to have to miss a week, but our Thrive groups, it gathers every other week. And this is we're trying to get people to be able to share life together. And so with our Thrive groups, you have a couple of different things that you'll be doing. One is going through the U curriculum with Lifeway, just like with our Church at Study groups, but you'll also have the opportunity to do deep dives in which you dig deeper into Sunday morning or Tuesday night Bible study and kind of discuss those things. And the other option is that you'll be able to do topical and book studies. And so with our Thrive groups, not only do you have a different dynamic in terms of what content you'll be studying, the other goal of that is that you will be committing to studying with the same group of people ongoing. We started this summer, y'all, and there has been amazing testimony after testimony about how good it is to find your tribe, your niche of people, how good it is to find some folks that you may not have ever talked to before because they were across the room, but now you're able to zone in and dig deeper and get to know them well. The church is built off of Acts chapter 2, verse 42, where they gathered together, studied the disciples' teaching, prayed, and they lived together, shared meals together. And so I encourage you to get plugged into a small group so that you can grow well. Again, the website is smallgroups.wordtab.net. Once you go there, there's some really clear and simple instructions on what you have to do. You can fill out a Thrive Group interest form. Once you complete that, someone will be in contact with you to help you get connected to the best Thrive Group possible. The other dynamic of these small groups is not only do we want people to join them, we also would love to have people who can help facilitate them. And so if you are able to, please go to smallgroups.wordtab.net, and there is a whole website on a web page on that talks about becoming a facilitator. You do not have to have a Bible degree in order to facilitate a small group. You need to love Jesus, be a maturing believer, and loving people. And your facilitation is making sure that everyone there has an opportunity to grow together. You'll have lots of training, lots of support, but we would love for you to do it. The only thing that limits us from having small groups is not having enough facilitators to meet all the need. And so please, if you are able, if God has equipped you, be like we've been learning in Titus and have a Paul who's been investing in a Titus. We are commanded as believers to disciple one another, and we need for you to help do that. And next, we're going to have up our associate pastor, the Stephanie Battle, coming in and talking about member care services.
Hey, everybody. Hey, family. And so as you see, God is still moving here at Word Tabernacle Church, and we are very excited. I just want to, for the Center for Faith, Family, and Personal Growth, just give you some highlights and updates to confirm, as if you need confirmation, that God is still moving. Since March 15th, we have had 18 candidates for baptism. And so Pastor talked about how God is a creative God. And so we are being challenged as his creation to be creative as well. And so we are coming up with a way that we can still support and celebrate our family members who say, I want to receive Jesus, and I want that demonstration of baptism. And so stay tuned for how we're doing that. So we have 18 people who have accepted Jesus Christ. We're so glad that baptism doesn't say yes, amen. And this is just since March 15th. These are the ones that are waiting for us to baptize them, but they have been through new members. They are into the church family, so we're excited. Our Women's Roundtable, we are still doing ministry. We have an average about 70 women attending via Zoom. Again, we had an opportunity to really continue that in a creative way, and it has been going good. God is still moving. We have had 96 counseling sessions, and all of this is just since March 15th. That means that people still know they can come to the church to get the support and care that they need, and we want to make sure that you all understand that Word Tabernacle Church, we are still open and we are still working. This is what I'm very excited about. Since January, we have had 132 decisions in 2020. Amen. A surge of those decisions. We had a surge of 31 decisions since between March 1st and March 8th. What I believe God was telling us those first 2 Sundays of March, don't get distracted about what's coming, because I am still moving. And since March 15th, we have had 51 decisions. I am so excited. And so that lets us know that God is not shut down, and we don't need to be either. He's moving, and we need to move with him. So I hope if you're not already excited from Angela Galia's presentation, from Pastor's Morning Manna, from Pastor Kyle's presentation, I hope that you are excited now. And so in those decisions, every district has been hit. And I know you're saying, well, Pastor Stephanie, I'm looking at your screen and I don't see District 14. Again, we are challenged to be creative. District 14 are our members that are outside of the state of North Carolina. We have had people join from Florida, join from Texas in different time zones. Right now, we're doing new members class through Zoom at a certain time. Yes, it lets us still connect with people, But that time, we have it at 6:15. It's 3:15 in Texas. People are at work. And so now we have to be creative. So we do have people from District 14 that are outside of North Carolina that says, yes, I want to be a member of your church. And now we are thinking of ways to be creative and how to put that district up there to say they are members. So they responded to the call, but now we need to be creative in how we get them connected. And we are constantly thinking of ways to do that. And so I want you to know, you're going to hear Pastor say this, you've heard him say this. We are committed to the standard of care that we provide to our members. And that's what I want to end my presentation with, because we are serious about connecting the members and community to the church. We do that through our district groups. Everybody assigns a district care leader, and so you should be hearing from them via text, phone, email, and I hope that you respond. If you get a message consistently from them and you have not responded yet, please do so, because that's how we make sure that you are okay. That's how we make sure that you are maintaining that connection to your Word Tab family. Also through our Facebook groups. Every district has a Facebook group set up. And so this gives you an opportunity and a platform to communicate to us about your needs and to fellowship with one another. We want to connect members not only electronically. That's why we gave out yard signs. It warms my heart when I'm driving down Sunset and I see, oh, that's my family. Oh, that's my family in the yard. We still have yard signs available, so please come and get them. You can drive under the patio on the carport of the church and get a yard sign. But please get those, because it is comforting to know that you have family around, and that's what the yard signs do. Not only do we seek to connect members in the community to the church, but we want to make sure we communicate to members about the church and as the church, WTC and Kingdom. We do that through our weekly newsletter. If you have not subscribed, please do so that you can stay connected. Your care leader calls, you get text message and our weekly voicemail. And I am excited that not only are we committed to our efforts, but we have people who see our efforts and they commit to making sure we can be effective. Y'all, we are partnering with UNC for the Gillens Grant, which is a highly selective, competitive grant to reduce, amen, that is worth clapping, to reduce the impact of COVID-19 in the African American community. And they saw how we have our structure to communicate to our members, and they want to use our structure to communicate information about COVID-19 to see how the community responds. And this is a great part. They want to duplicate it nationwide. Us in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, Eastern North Carolina have a structure that the nation wants to replicate. And so you all are going to be receiving surveys. A flyer is coming out soon. So we need your help and we need your participation. And so you'll see that. Also, not only do we communicate to members about the church, but we want to care for the members as the church and through the church. Pastor Kyle broke down our generational age gap groups, and we want to make sure that we are caring for our senior members. Not because they're very, very, very important. Everybody is. But we understand that in that age, you may live alone, you may not have as much access, but so we've started delivering communion, care items to our senior members. But this is the thing, family. We need for you to communicate to us, to let us know. When your care leaders call and they say, hey, do you need communion for this month? Say yes. All you have to do is text back yes, just so we can know. And so we delivered that communion and care items to our senior members, and not only for senior members, but those who are physically disabled. If you go to wordtab.net and click on our main menu, you will see a member care section. If you click on that, it will take you to a website where you'll learn who your district leaders are. You'll also be able to report a care. If you have a death in your family, if you are sick, if a family member or you had to go to the hospital, if you need communion because you're physically disabled or you're a senior member, please let us know. We can't care if we're not communicated to about the care. And so we want to make sure we're able to respond. We also care for our members through counseling. You saw that we have had 96 sessions going on, and so our counseling department and ministry is still active. And so you do not have to go through whatever you're going through alone. I know it's just not COVID. It's things that you're going through personally. So let us know. I'm so excited that, I love marriage. And kudos to Pastor and Angela. I love marriage. Woo, woo, woo. And so it shows that people are still living and thriving in this season. We've had 2 sessions of premarital counseling. We've had 5. We've had 5 couples who've completed this process, and we have more that are enrolled for our fall session. I wanted to point that out because life is still going on, and we're excited about it, and we're here to support you to live. And so don't forget to go onto wordtab.net, and you'll be able to see the member care. In that, you'll have information about the care leader ministry. We need care leaders. So if you want to help us to connect people to the church, to care for people as the church, and to communicate to people through the church, sign up to be a care leader. Also, prayer. Prayer is our source of power, family, and we have opportunities for prayer. You will see all of the times and avenues of prayer on that website. And again, counseling. Here are Tinger Purvis, Stanley Purvis, and the marriage ministry. Here are their email addresses so that you can communicate to us. We care for you, and we hope that you know that and you feel that care. But let us know if there are things that we can do to help you, because we are committed to our standard of care. And now I'm going to bring up Trishonda Robinson, who is the Executive Director of our REACH Center.
Well, hello, family. So I don't know about you, but I am excited about all that we have heard and that have gone on. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about what has been going on and give you some highlights from our Center of Community and Collaborations. So first of all, we are just excited about our partnerships. And so the first thing I want to talk about is some of the partnerships that we have had going on all year long. So our first is we partner with the city of Rocky Mount to increase participation in the census. So the census is so important. One of the reasons why the census is so important, and it's important that our communities are counted, is because of the fact that it determines the money that that's put into our communities for our schools, for our social programs, as far as our health care, as far as feeding programs and different kind of services. Also, another partnership that's so important to us is our partnership with Interfaith Food Shuttle. Each month, we have partnered with Interfaith Food Shuttle to provide food for almost 1,100 families in this area. 1,100 families. So the Interfaith Food Shuttle is here on the campus every month on the first Thursday of every month. Next month, we have that going on September the 3rd. We are in need of volunteers, family. So if you want to volunteer for the Interfaith Food Shuttle to come and make sure that families are getting food, you can show up and volunteer. We are in need of volunteers for that. Also, we partnered with City Trends. We knew that healthcare workers was in need of uniforms, and so therefore, we partnered with City Trends, and over 200 uniforms were given out to healthcare workers during this pandemic. So also, our nursing home ministry. So one of the things is that we did not want to stop ministry, and we could not stop ministry in the midst of this pandemic. And so although our nursing home ministry could not physically go inside of the nursing homes, we wanted to make sure that those residents still knew that we cared for them and that we loved them. And so one of the things that our nursing home ministry did is that they took signs and they walked outside of the nursing home. They prayed outside of the windows, and they also did handwritten notes and made sure that those residents still understood that they cared for them and they loved them. And so we made sure that we continued those kind of partnerships outside of the community during the pandemic. And so caring for people. And so one of the things about the Reach Center is that we are still going. And so people often ask us, what is still going on over at the Reach Center? Can we still come over? What are the services that you all are still providing? We're still living out our mission. We're still equipping individuals to secure gainful employment, to prevent homelessness, and to break the cycle of violence through education, skills development, and connections to community resources. The mission has not changed since the pandemic. We are still rolling. And so on average, we are doing approximately 156 pre-screening applications a month. And that is just for rent and utility assistance alone, financial assistance. But we're also doing assistance with medication. And then our food pantry is open every Thursday where people can call that may need food. As far as the services, we're doing 51% is just for utilities, 28% has been for rent, 17% has been for food, 2% for medication, and then another 2% for other services. Because sometimes we do get people that call that may need services as far as clothing. Sometimes it may be for as simple as a gas card, just to get to a doctor's appointment or to some other appointment. But also, we want people to understand that we also have people that call us and they just need a resource referral. Sometimes they are looking for services around mental health. They're looking for insurance information, child care, and housing. And one of the things I want our membership and people in the community to know is that you do not have to be ashamed to call us. We are here. If you need our services, pick up the phone and call us and let us know what you need. We are here to serve you. It is as simple as asking us and letting us know what you need. If we don't have the resources that you need, we want to be able to point you to those resources. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did during this pandemic is that we wanted to make sure that we provided something for the healthcare workers. And so our team of volunteers got together and we partnered with some other organizations in the area, and we made sure that we provided lunches to over 650 healthcare workers at different facilities. But not only did we provide physical food, but we also provided that emotional support. And so our wise warriors and also some community volunteers wrote handwritten notes and put it on every meal that went out. And so the responses that we got back from those simple cards, the text messages that I received, the emails that we received, the card was just what I needed. There was moments that I felt like giving up, that I was tired. And that card lifted me, and it was just what I needed. So I just want to thank every person that took a moment and wrote a card that went on those lunches, that went out to those healthcare workers on it, for that we did. And so Twin Counties Relief Fund. So when the pandemic first started, we sat down with a couple of business leaders and we asked, what is it that you are hearing from your employees? What is it that you are seeing that they needed? So we sat down with those business leaders and we developed what we call the Twin Counties Relief Fund. And the Twin Counties Relief Fund was established to help alleviate some of the financial burdens of individuals in the hospitality, retail, and cosmetic arts industries. But then over time, it expanded. And it expanded to anybody who was impacted by COVID-19. And so from March to July, over 476 individuals who had been impacted by COVID-19 benefited from services, specifically services such as, rent assistance, utility assistance, and medication assistance. But we also had people we also received grant and donation funding from private and individual donors, and then such organizations as United Way, Coastal Federal Credit Union, National Rocky Mount Rotary Club, the Rocky Mount Area Chamber of Commerce, and then Rural Advancement Foundation. And so the Twin Counties Relief Fund is still open. And so applications are still available, and you can go on our website at www.myreachnc.com and still apply. And like I said before, do not be ashamed to apply. If you got questions about the fund, if you got questions about our services, please call us and please do apply. So we got a couple of creative projects that are going on right now. So our Reach Center was selected to take part in the Reconnect to Move Forward mental health and well-being cohort with the Institute of Emergent Issues at North Carolina State University. So what was happening is that we was getting an increase of calls with our assessments and our intake, where we were seeing people that was talking about they was having increased anxiety, depression, anxiety. And so what we began to do was we was referring them out. We was referring them out to our counseling department. We was referring them out to mental health services. And so we ended up applying to this particular project, and we got into this particular cohort. And so the goal of this cohort is to develop a mental health and well-being model that is holistic, innovative, sustainable, and can be replicated. And so in October, we'll be able to present this current work in the statewide virtual meeting in October. And also, our next project is the Rural Advancement Foundation International, and it's called the Come to the Table Fellowship. And in that, we hosted a community conversation around faith and farming. Our next creative project is called Know Your Worth, and it's a human trafficking awareness project, and it's to help raise awareness around human trafficking and the increase that we're seeing with social media and technology when it comes to our young girls. So this was a photo project that we did with our summer internship. So our upcoming initiatives is our voter information project, where we want to make sure that people have the information that they need when it comes to voting. Also, our housing initiative. People have been asking us whether or not we will be doing housing, and so we have some different programs that we'll be putting in place around housing, and then our ongoing volunteer training that we have coming up.
Guys, you can see there is a lot going on at Word Tabernacle Church, and so I want to take a moment and share my State of the Church report. If you are new and to our business meeting, you may not be familiar with this particular. My slide keeps advancing, so I keep pushing it back, but you may not be familiar with this particular initiative, but one of the things I've done since the inception of the church, one year I was watching the President of the United States. I don't remember who it was, and he gave the State of the Union address, and I was like, man, it would be great to do that with the church. And so at every business meeting, I do a State of the Church report. And really what it is my heart on paper. So I'm going to read some of it, and I'm going to advance through a few slides. But here is the current State of the Church report. Grace and peace be multiplied to you and to your families. Let me begin with a simple thank you. Our church members have proven great resilience in this unprecedented time. As you have heard, we've received new members, continued the core disciplines of discipleship, and continued our financial and mission partnerships. We've adapted and not acquiesced in this season. God is pleased. For 15 years, you've heard me make statements like, the text can never mean today anything different than what it was meant to mean when it was written. That's a statement around context. I approach every text addressing the issue of context. What are the historical questions? Setting and geography. What are the tactical questions? Particularly from the lens of syntax, genre, and grammar. As we learn more about God, man, sin, and faith, we begin to address the theological questions. What is the cultural question that's being addressed? So that we can understand what the listener is going through, because we all filter everything based on our experiences, our exposures, and our errors. I think this process is equally helpful for us today. So what I like to do is I want to contextualize I want to exegete our world as we know it today from the lens of what I call three aging men. These men are named public health, public education, and economy. As we began this year, our 15th year church anniversary, none of us could have known that a virus 1,000 times smaller than a dust mote will bring our society to a halt. Almost overnight, we were forced to acknowledge that what we always knew, but secretly, hope would never be tested, and that was leadership matters. Our national response has swayed between inattention, inaction, and incompetence. The result of this is that although the United States is just 4% of the world population, we are almost 25% of COVID cases and COVID deaths. So our church and many other churches, public schools, and many businesses have not reopened, not because of a virus, but because of a leadership vacuum. So this leadership vacuum has directly impacted me, it's directly impacted my family, and it's directly impacted the church and the community that God has called me to lead and feed. I feel so strongly about this predictable and preventable problem that I agreed to be featured in a national commercial filmed at our church addressing our country's leadership crisis. To be honest, I never thought about it in these terms. But since the United States has the highest number of fatalities in the world from coronavirus, we can easily conclude that the wrong leadership kills. Meanwhile, many of our college students, most of our K-12 students are in virtual classrooms. And although many of them can access the internet, and for those who can't, we've made systems available in our church to help them, we also recognize that students and parents need necessary technology skills and strong social networks for help and guidance. What we know is that virtual classrooms can be just as unequal as real classrooms. Here in North Carolina, more than 20 years ago, 5 school districts in this state filed a lawsuit. It was called Leandro versus the state of North Carolina. In 1997, the Supreme Court of North Carolina unanimously affirmed that the state has a constitutional responsibility to provide every student, including those who are at risk or from rural or underserved communities, with a, quote, equal opportunity for, quote, a sound basic education. Here we are, 20 years later, and that standard, that constitutional standard, has still not been met. What does that have to do with you as a pastor? Because those students are wordites. They live in our community. Or they could be kids that just are a voiceless, vulnerable population that God is calling us as a church to be a voice for. Public health and public education have a third brother. His name is economy. There are 3 main groups of workers in the COVID-19 economy. Number 1, those who have lost their jobs and face economic insecurity. Number 2, those who are classified as essential workers and face health insecurity as a result. And number 3, those who can continue to work from the safety of their homes. Unfortunately, black workers are less likely to be found in the last group. African Americans are disproportionately likely to be in occupations that are considered essential in nature, like the food industry and health services. Now, I get it. The upside is they still have their jobs. But the downside is choosing between physical health and economic health. Minority small businesses, as Angela mentioned, we were an exception, but minority small businesses were less likely to get support from the CARES Act that was passed by Congress. Public health, public education, and economy were all born and raised in an environment of structural inequity. This harmed their efforts for advancement. It began in the 1700s when citizenship was denied to them. It continued during the 1800s, when participation in the Homestead Act was denied, and separate but equal was affirmed as a public policy in 1896. Their efforts continued into the 1900s through Jim Crow, freedom rides, GI Bill, public education, even into the 21st century with the historic Emanuel AME Church massacre, the deaths of Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Walter Scott, Freddie Gray, Ike Gurley, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and many more. Together, these three boys, public health, public education, and economy, have become wounded and weary from generations of explicit and implicit bias that has been found in housing, the privatization of wealth in the guise of philanthropy, public symbols of confederacy, environmental injustice, unjust policies on immigration and naturalization, lack of livable wages, and a growing wealth gap. You're saying, what in the world does this have to do with church? There is a silver lining in the cloud. Public health, public education, and economy have an older sister. Her name is church. Church has been with them all along. Church has been with them, offering them hope. Church has been with them, helping give them primary leadership and advocacy that they need. And oftentimes, as the church, we forget about our younger brothers, public health, public education, and economy. It's the intersection that solidifies my decision to even run for public office. The Bible gives us book-by-book confrontation with a Messiah who does not ignore body, soul, or spirit. Proverbs 31, speak for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. Isaiah 1, learn to do right, seek justice. Defend the oppressed. Take up the cause of the fatherless. Plead the cause of the widow. Isaiah 58. Is this not the kind of fast I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice, to untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke? Is this not to share your food with the hungry and provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, clothe them, and not turn away from your own flesh and blood. Micah 6, he has shown you, O man, what is good. What does the Lord require of you? But to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Mark chapter 16, he said to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel of all creations. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, nevertheless, each person should live as a believer in whatever situation the Lord has assigned to them, just as God has called them. This is the rule I lay down in all the churches. 1 Peter chapter 2, but you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. 1 Peter chapter 4, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in the various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do it as one who speaks the very words of God. If anyone serves, they should do it with strength that God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. To him be the glory and the power forever and forever. This is the biblical, cultural, and historical context that requires our methods to adapt. At the same time, we have to remain faithful to the God-given vision, a place of relevant ministry where relationships are built, needs are met, purpose is fulfilled, and God is enjoyed. It's interesting to me, 15 years ago, when God gave us our vision statement, he told us then, this church will only survive if it remains relevant. And so the question before us is, how now shall we live? How now do we as Wordites remain relevant so that the church can properly shelter, protect, lead people not only to Christ so they have a secure eternity? Because be clear about this, y'all. God is concerned about earth and eternity. So I want to give you some understandings of where we're going, what's going to happen in the future. How are we going to do this? Number one, we're going to replace footprints with fingerprints, meaning there'll be more personalized communication coming from our staff and leaders. You're going to see a whole lot of handwritten stuff. You're going to see more of our fingerprints. Number two, we're going to continue investing in and improving our broadcasts and our programming schedules that include offering from every ministry center. Number three, beginning October of 2020, October of this year, we're going to begin allowing 30 members to attend the 8 a.m. Sunday worship or the 12 noon Tuesday Bible study on a reservation basis once per month. When we do this, we'll allow families to worship together, and it will give about 250 individuals the opportunity to have a live in-the-room experience each month, while you can also interact with our staff. I want you to go ahead and hear this. I'm going to say this. This is going to continue through the remainder of 2020. I'm going to say that again. It's going to continue through the remainder of 2020. So people think, well, in a week, 2 weeks, a month, we'll be back to normal. We will not be. And we have the context of public health, public education, and economy to do church ministry in. It is no different than me taking a text and ignoring the context. If I were to open up church, I would be ignoring our context. That would mean that I would stand in the pulpit as your pastor and in essence perform malpractice. Matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm not scared. Any church that's having church right now, that pastor is performing malpractice. Because there is a context of public health, public education, and economy that cannot be ignored. And as your under-shepherd, I will not ignore the context of any text. I will never ignore the context that God puts me in. What are we going to do? Number four, we're going to train ministers and leaders so they can facilitate, as Pastor Kyle said, church at study and thrive groups. The goal is to have 50% of our memberships in small groups. We're going to invite members on site into small group settings, both inside and outside the building. The groups will be a maximum size of 10 people. It's going to require physical distance, temperature checks, and masks. We're going to create opportunities for members to either serve in the church or through one of our community partners. You've heard Ripple Effects mentioned many times. We're about to start a large mentoring program with Boys and Girls Club. We're going to give you opportunities to serve. Number 7, we will implement a community outreach strategy. In other words, you can't come to us, we're going to come to you. We're going to find ways to have outdoor meetings and outdoor settings. Number 8, we'll be releasing an updated church calendar using this new model we have. Big Rock, that means weekly and ongoing. Little Rock, that means monthly and quarterly. And Sand, that means annual. It's a concept we've created to help us increase the frequency of some activities and decrease the frequency of other activities. Included in that is going to be an intensive schedule that includes 1 and 2 hour seminars in the range of things that really matter for our members. Number 9, we'll increase our print media, something that we've never done before, so that we can begin mailing out things to our members that are not on social media, or they can stop by the church and pick it up. Number 10, we're going to continue updating our membership database. This is very important. We need to ensure that every member has some social media or telephonic connection to us. We're going to be working hard to do that. Number 11, we'll continue building the building construction. Let me say this. While all this is going on, you heard these massive, amazing reports. Check this out. The steel is erected in our final sanctuary. The steel is up. So while all this other stuff was going on, We were putting steel up for the fire. Because let me tell you something, I will speak this prophetically. When we come back, we're going to need all the space we can get. Right? And so we're preparing for that. And we couldn't do that if you were not giving like you've been giving. Y'all, we're going to begin airing commercials on social media to begin promoting our online church membership nationally, as Pastor Stephanie talked about people that are joining in lots of different places around the country. I want to say a final thing in closing, as I normally do. In closing, I do want to address my personal life. As you know, since the inception of our ministry, I've used the business meeting as the platform and not the pulpit. I just believe that the pulpit is for preaching and not my business. It's for preaching and not your business. Business meeting, on the other hand, is where we address church business. My personal life is a part of that. As most of you know, Angela and I got married on Saturday, August 22nd. COVID would not allow for a large wedding. Literally, we scheduled, organized a ceremony, and I recognize that although this is a profoundly personal decision, I also recognize that I'm a pastor and a public figure. Because of that, I don't live my life without public scrutiny or public accountability. So in no situation should marriage be taken lightly. Now, I would not be married right now. Angela would not be married right now if we took this situation lightly. We did not take it lightly. I would ask of you what I would ask for any married couple, and that is your prayerful support of the decision. I also want to just remind you, married folk and single folk, let me just use this as a quick counseling session. Some points to think about. First thing to think about is we are all our own person. So we should not see people as an appendage to their spouse. They're their own person. Number two, we all are hurt by gossip, so don't. Number three, when we criticize someone's spouse, we also harm the other person. So just understand, it's no different than with my children. You talk about my wife, you're not talking about the pastor's wife, you're talking about James Gaillard's wife. So you harm me as well. Number four, everybody has a past, so stay out of it. Number five, it's hard living with unrealistic expectations from other people. So let's not put unrealistic expectations on anybody. And then finally, everyone has a God-given calling and purpose from God. Every person watching this business meeting, you have a unique calling from God. You have a unique purpose from God. That's why we serve a creator and not a chance. Because chance does not give you calling and purpose. Creator gives you calling and purpose. So I want to lean in on calling and purpose in closing. Angela has served as our Chief Operations Officer for 11 years. This role includes managing the finances of the church. It always has. Upon her arrival, the first thing she did was to ensure that the church had an external, independent annual audit of the church finances. Since then, we've now had 11 consecutive perfect audits. Now, I want to just say this. There is no plausible reason she should not continue serving in the place she is most gifted to serve. As a pastor and as a husband, it is my desire that people operate in their God-given gifts. Perhaps you're unaware of her background. Let me give it to you. She has a bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering. She has a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. She has a master's in business administration with a concentration in management and finance, all from Duke University. She's an alumnus of Leadership North Carolina. It's the most comprehensive training program for private and public sector leaders in our state. She sits on several foundation boards and, quite frankly, has evolved into one of our state's most competent and most respected nonprofit executives. There is a track record in this church for accountability, for integrity, and for transparency. That in and of itself should remove any concerns around her serving as chief financial officer. So I want to be very clear. Marriage does not change her role in the church. She will continue to be our chief financial officer. Now, I get it. I recognize there's always a small minority of people who want to craft a convenient reason why they should not give to the church. And so in closing, I want to share with you some reasons why you should give to the church. Number one, you should give to the church because the church is organized for both the moral and the material well-being of people. You've seen evidence of that in this business meeting. Number two, the church is the largest social economic institution in the community. Number three, the church is the most trusted repository for congregational and community wealth. That's evidence in our job creation. Number four, the church has political influence over public policy, and that can change the economics of any community. Number five, the church has the most robust and the most consistent record of returning wealth to the community. And then finally, when we give to the church, we're also investing in our own best interest. And so, in closing, please know that I am deeply grateful for all of you. I'm excited. You should be excited about what God is doing and where God is taking all of us. Still thriving, Pastor James Gaillard. That's my State of the Church report. It's 10:35. If you have a question you want to ask, would you go into whatever social media site you're in? We have people monitoring every social media site. They're going to send those questions to me by way of an app called GroupMe. And I'm going to stay on for just a moment. And while you do that, this is what I want to ask you to do. There's a slide I want you all to look at. I want you to text WTC text, pound WTC text, to this number that's on your screen, 22300. We have a new text messaging service that's going to require every member to opt in for. So I need you to get your phone out right now. Hopefully you're not watching on the phone. If you are, would you take a screenshot? Take a screenshot of this slide. And right now, before today is over, pound sign WTC text to 22300, 22300. We need you to opt in. It's a brand new, we're not using the old system anymore. We've upgraded our system. We have some redundancy. And so we're removing one system, and we recognize that the system we do one call with can also do texting capabilities, but we need you to opt in on it. So would you do that? And I'm going to check to see if we have any questions. Now, while I'm looking for questions, if you go to wordtab.net/handouts, wordtab.net/handouts, you can get a copy of the income and expense report, and you can get a copy of my State of the Church report. I know a lot of you like to share the State of the Church report. You like to share what I've communicated. Wordtab.net/handouts will get you there, okay? So let me check real quick before we close out today to see if we have any final questions. And I'm going to check real quick. Will the handouts be available? It's the first question I got. Will handouts be available for the members? Yes. They're already available on the church website, www.wordtab.net. I think it's /handouts, and you'll see them. You can click on it and download the PDF of the income and expense report and also the State of the Church report. And I'm waiting for other questions to come in from the various sites. Guys, if you don't have a question and you're still online, I know it's gone a little longer, but we don't have 4 meetings a year anymore. We only have 2. So it does take us a little bit longer to communicate the information. I hope you will walk away from this meeting encouraged. I hope you will walk away very confident that God is up to great things. I hope you will walk away very confident that He who has begun a good work in us is able to perform and complete it. I hope you will walk away knowing God is still saving, God is still sovereign, God is still working. And so we serve a God, you know, in my devotion life, I'm still looking, here we go. What is the time frame for the new sanctuary to be completed? It is my hope that when we come back as a church, it'll be ready. That's my prayer. And let me tell you something. Did you hear those amazing financials that were given? I want you to grab this and I want you to hold on to this. That is with only 56% of our members giving. Imagine if the other 44% actually worked for advancing the kingdom, actually worked for job creation, actually worked for the reversal of the inequity of those three brothers we talked about. The possibilities are endless. So the steel is up. Our architects are drawing right now the plumbing, mechanical, and electrical drawings. We'll bid that out and we'll immediately start that work. I think it's entirely within reason that we could be in that space end of the year, the beginning of next year. That's the plan. If y'all keep giving, keep serving, keep praying, we absolutely can do that. How much is the PPE loan? I think Angela just stepped out, so hopefully she'll see this question and get back in here. PPP loan, rather. It's somewhere in the $180,000 range. It was basically 2.5 times salary. And so we got a question on the amount of the PPP loan. $190,700. That will convert to a grant. And we're in the midst of doing that paperwork now. Are there any other questions that you want to ask before I pray us out of here? I really appreciate y'all. When I went into all the sites at the height, I counted about 375 of you logged on. I know some of you are watching more than one person from your home. Update on the gala. Stephanie, give me a quick update on gala.
So we're about to send an email out letting them know we are doing full refunds for those who paid, who have on record to pay.
So email will come out. There will be full refunds for anything that's gone out relative to the gala. I believe that email is going out this week, Stephanie. So Stephanie will get that email out this week. So what that means is gala canceled. We just can't risk gathering in those large numbers. Remember, everything we do, we have to do into context. The context we're living in is still that we're dealing with a public health emergency, okay? So refunds will come back to you. Next question. If you want to serve and don't know your calling, what do? Call Pastor Stephanie. Call her, email her. We have a spiritual gifts assessment. If you went through a new members when we didn't offer it or you don't remember the results of that, Pastor Stephanie can work with you. And I'm so grateful for that question. As disciples of the Lord Jesus, we need to serve. And we need to make sure that even though we're in this context, we're still serving. I do want to say while other questions are coming in, two other members of our executive team are here in the room. Eric Spivey, who is director of our operations, and Lenny Battle, who is our worship pastor. So if you have questions relative to anything going on in campus or in celebration, they're here to address that. Where does special needs ministry stand at this point? That is a great question. Kyle, you want to speak to that?
It's been developed to be focused on in-person gatherings, and so while we're doing the electronic version, making all populations can still log into that, but it'll be launched once we gather together.
So we're right in the midst of that, and it'll be launched when we can do in-person gathering. To that point, I don't know that this was raised, but we are in the midst of building out a playground, okay? And so that's another capital improvement. We're also putting external Wi-Fi extenders on our parking lot so that if you can't get in the building for Wi-Fi, if you can just get to the parking lot, we're putting picnic tables around the building with umbrellas and creating spaces where outdoors people can gather, people can do homework, people can have lunch together. And so those additional advancements are being made as well. Are WTC yard signs still available? They are. As Stephanie said, if you drive under the enclosed area, we keep some out there all the time. So you can drive through 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're in a box. You can grab one or two. Sometimes people are grabbing them for their business, for a family member, and for themselves. And so, yes, they are still available. How do we do reservations for attending service? So our administrative services team is developing that model. You'll have two options. You'll have the ability to go online yourself and see what's available, or you'll be able to call in and reserve your spot. What we will ask in the beginning is that people only opt for once a month, just so that we can get as many people circulating through as possible. That information will go out to you. We're going to spend the beginning part of September perfecting that, and that's why by mid to second or third week of September, we'll start accepting reservations, and we'll be ready for you the first Sunday in October. Any other questions that I can address? Y'all are awesome. I want to thank our executive team. I want to thank y'all. Can y'all, I don't know what it's called when you put them clappy hands out there on your site and all that. Whatever that's called, can you do some clappy hands for our media center? These folks are behind the scenes. They are running cameras, running switchers, running microphones, on soundboards, doing graphics, all of this stuff. And it's become so significant, right? Because it's where we are in our culture. It's the context. I'm going to keep saying it. It's the context of where we are. I want to say thank you to them. And I want to say thank you to the executive team. What has happened over the years is that people are now saying, man, what is remarkable about Word Tabernacle Church is the team. And I would agree. We have a remarkable team. And so I'm grateful for all of our executive team members, grateful for our leadership, and our staff as a whole. This whole PowerPoint. See, let me tell you something. Usually the most important folk, the one you really miss, are the ones who are behind the scenes that don't show up anymore. So now we just went through an hour and 45-minute presentation. You didn't see Tammy one time, right? You saw us, but you didn't see Tammy who created the presentation, right? So it's people like Tammy, people like our volunteers, people like our other staff people, all of the reporting that Trishonda shared, Stephanie shared, Kyle shared, those are leaders and staff that are behind the scenes executing many of those ministries. And so I can't begin to thank you enough. Update on the Tarboro site. We have, I think, have we started the pavement yet? Is Eric still around? No, we start pouring the gravel for the parking lot at Tarboro? Week after Labor Day. So the new chairs came in, I think, didn't they? New chairs came in yesterday. The gravel is being poured for the parking lot a week after Labor Day. We'll be ready. When COVID lets us come back, we'll be ready. And so great investment has gone on in Tarboro, and I want to thank y'all for that, y'all. It's been awesome because of your giving. When do we have to register to attend Bible study in person? Again, about right around second week of September, our staff should be ready to receive those. I can't speak to campaign signs because this is a church business meeting, and so I'm going to have to punt on that one. I have a website, jamesgaillard.com. You probably can get some information on that, or you can inbox me on social media. I think that's it. Let me make sure there's no more coming through. Y'all are awesome. Y'all, listen, are y'all excited about what God is doing? If you are, would you just type in, I'm excited, my family is excited, we can't wait. I'm excited. God has shown himself, as always, faithful. I'll close with this. There's no more questions. Can you give the link again for the handouts? wordtab.net/handouts. wordtab.net/. Rhonda, is that correct? It's handouts, plural, and not handout, singular? Okay. wordtab.net/handouts. And it should be up there for you. Let me close on this. And if there are more questions, we can address them later. I shared with you about the creative work of the Holy Spirit at the beginning. How about if we land where we took off? Let me tell you how awesome our God is. Not only do we serve a God who is a creator, that means he can take nothing and make something. Watch this. The second person of the Godhead is a carpenter. So we serve a God who can take nothing and make something. And then we serve God in Jesus who can take something and make more out of it. When we think about our future, how can we be dismayed? Whether God is going to help us take nothing and make something out of it, or we're going to take what's existing and make more out of it, we are in great hands, in the hands not of chance, but in the hands of our Creator and our Carpenter. Thank you for everything you're doing. I can't wait to preach tomorrow. I cannot wait to preach tomorrow out of the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15. Can't wait to do it. Thank you for what you do. I love you with everything in me. Thank you for your prayers. Please support our staff, our associate pastors, and all of our executive team, and I will see you online tomorrow. Have a great day.